I have never met that person. Never, ever have I met that person. He's loving and hugs us and says he loves us and teases us and laughs. It's just such a tragedy. And I also want to say that during all this time, when I was sick, I truly do believe in my heart and in my soul that this would never have happened had I not been sick and I had been home. And I am so sorry to everyone, including Devon, because I was not an uninvolved parent. I was overly involved to the point of being an annoyance to Devon, understandably so. But I was very, very involved, and I know that I would have caught all this. So I'm so sorry, and I live with that every day. And I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, Devon, at the time in your life when you needed me the most. I wasn't there for you, and I'm so, so sorry. Anyway, I think that, I'm sorry, I'm cutting this really short, but I just do want to say that I really do hope and pray for each person they can begin the process of healing. I know not everyone is spiritual, and I respect and understand that, but I have been over the last 3 years. I was introduced to a church and I just drank it up like I was starving for it. And it has gotten me through this. I believe that whether people believe it's God, Jesus, Spirit, whatever different people resonate with, I believe that God is in, through, and with all of us, and that God is merciful and forgiving and compassionate and loving, and he gives his love to every single person impacted, affected, and involved in this situation. And that absolutely includes Devon too. God forgives you, Devon, and so do I. You are loved always and forever. This does not have to define you. You can make great choices and do good in prison, and I have every confidence that you will. Why do I know this? Because I know you, because I believe in you, because you are a good person who made a horrible, devastating mistake that has altered your life as well as so many others, and I am so deeply sorry to everyone for that. Please hold to the person that you are off all these drugs. Hold to that person that you've been the majority of your life, and be strong, my son. I love you always and forever. Your family and I are always here from you. And I do want to just briefly address the no remorse thing. I know it seems like that, but I too have cried and screamed and bawled. But I can sometimes come into this courtroom and not show that side of me. I don't know what that is, whether that's what it takes for me to get through it, where I become stronger, or whether it's because I'm praying to be strong while I'm here. I'm not doing very good right now, but I've talked so many times to Devon on the phone when he said, I've cried so much that sometimes I'm surprised that I can still cry. He's had panic attacks. He's had scratches on his chest from panic attacks. He's been in suicide watch multiple times. He's been on antipsychotic drugs, which are known for making you unemotional and stoic, and he needed those to be it because he was so emotional. So I know, I understand that people see what they see, and that they're in he's done such a horrible thing that there's probably no way for you to see any good in him. And those are completely understandable and real and human emotions that I completely respect. I completely understand. I'm just asking you to please respect my different opinion, even though I understand that you don't agree with me. Thank you so much. And thank you, Judge Slade, for letting me speak. Thank you.
Mr. Kaplan.
Everybody, right? That's all.
You want to make another?
Yes, Your Honor. Actually, I think that part of what Jim Erickson said you know, in a sentencing structure that has life without parole. I know of instances where judges have even not added consecutive sentences because really as a matter of kind of logic, there is nothing consecutive to life without parole. I would ask the court to consider that and consider if the court is going to do consecutive, that the additional years are really serve no real purpose.
Mr. Erickson, is there anything you would like to say?
Yeah, Your Honor, I have spoken with Mr. Erickson about his opportunity to speak, and as he's just indicated, and partially on my advice to him, given continuing proceedings, that he's choosing not to make a statement.
Mr. Erickson, whether it's advice or not, you have a right to speak. Is there anything you'd like to say?
No.
A lot of people talked about making a difference and whether anything that happened here today would make a difference. I know that sentencings for a lot of folks involved with crimes, whether they're survivors of crimes, first responders to crimes, defendants and perpetrators of crimes, see sentencing as a finality, as a way that we'll move on from this and everything's going to be fine. And I think that Mr. Castillo said it best, everybody's going to go home tonight. And for everyone who's here, not a whole lot is going to change, and that includes Mr. Erickson. There's nothing that I can do and no sentence that I can impose that will achieve the things that I want to do. I can't even do some of the things that people have asked me to do. The human being in me, probably like, I think it's fair to say probably everybody in this room, everybody who's watching, would like to take back May 7th. That's the only way to turn back this clock and make folks walking out of here better. We can't do that. I can't bring Kendrick Castillo back. Can't ease his parents' pain. I can't help the students and teachers and staff that were hurt. I can't give back the innocence that people have talked about their children losing. I can't make students and teachers and staff less afraid to go to school. I can't tell any parent who's watching, whether their kids went to STEM or they go to Douglas County schools or they go to any school in Colorado or the United States or even the world, that everything's going to be okay, that this sentence is going to make everything okay. I cannot do any of that. And narrowing in then to what can I do? And frankly, I don't think that there's anything, Mr. Erickson, that I could say to you that's going to make a difference. I've thought about what I could or should or might say to you since the day I read the verdicts on May 15th. I am sure that in your private conversations that I've heard about, that people like your parents and your family who spoke today, your lawyers, investigators have asked you why. Why did this happen? You heard just about everybody who spoke today, and I can tell you the letters that I read, there was not a letter that I read that someone didn't say, how could this happen, or why did this happen, or why did he do this? I suspect that that's something that Mr. Brockler maybe even hoped to have from you when he asked for this pre-sentence investigation report for this time, thinking that maybe he might receive something that would answer so many questions that he was receiving and his team was receiving from the people that you hurt. Not just at STEM school, not just in room 107, not just Kendrick Castillo's family, but so many people reached out all over the world. Why did this happen? And in some ways, I think that Mr. Brockler was giving you an opportunity to say that. I read the PSI, and we've talked about it being 590 some pages, 98 pages, or less than 600 pages. Of that, there was one typewritten page reportedly from you. May have been your words that your attorneys typed for you. But there was nothing substantive in there. There was nothing. It was a shell. There's really nothing that was helpful in that PSI from you. That was your chance to answer that question. The times that you have made statements of any kind was manipulative at best. Today is the first time that I've seen you show any kind of emotion, and I don't disagree with your mom. The courtroom's sterile. It's a place even judges aren't supposed to show emotion. And that's hard. There's certain images that you maybe think you need to portray at certain times. And so I don't always put a whole lot of credit into you didn't show any emotion while you sat here. But the first time I see any kind of emotion from you is today, not from 1:30 to about 5:30. But when your family is talking about the things that you were going to lose, the things that you had before this, that's when I hear you cry. And that's when you show emotion. That's difficult. Especially when the best reason that anybody can give to an explanation about why you did this, why you committed these crimes, why you killed Kendrick Castillo, why you terrorized everyone on May 7th. And when I say everyone, again, I'm not just talking about room 107 or room 109 or STEM School Highlands Ranch. Your actions that day were far-reaching, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the best explanation that anybody has is that it somehow relates to you failing school. We heard you had some challenges happening in your family. Your mom talked about this a little bit. This isn't your mom's fault. Maybe some untreated mental health challenges that you were facing. We've even heard that you were trying to self-medicate with drugs. But that does not help anyone here today understand of all the options that you had. And this wasn't minutes, it wasn't hours, it wasn't days, it wasn't weeks, it was months. That you had options to change this course, and you didn't. I want to share with you and just sum up some of the hundreds of letters that I read over the past couple of days, including the statements that I heard today. I put the letters, especially, into categories. How I think. There were people from all over the world who had no connection to STEM school, to Devon Erickson, to Kendrick Castillo, to any of the people that we've heard about throughout the trial. There were people from all over the world who saw this on the news and felt compelled to say something, to write a letter to the district attorney or to probation, to somehow discuss or express their shock and concern. There were people who had survived other shootings like Sandy Hook, or even closer to home, Arapahoe and Columbine, who unwillingly relived trauma of their childhood all over again because of what you did. There were people in Colorado who couldn't believe that this was happening again. Again, no connection necessarily to STEM, to Highlands Ranch, to Douglas County at all. Offering help, expressing concern about sending their own kids to school, worried about their own children's safety because you threatened that. You rocked that safety for them. Heard from people, in fact, you heard from some of these people during jury selection who were just driving that day, going someplace. There were other people who wrote letters. They're on their way to their doctor's appointments. They're going to see a movie and they can't get through in traffic. And at the time, they're probably a little irritated because they can't get where they're trying to go. And then they realize that this is a massive event that's occurring, that they're witnessing because they can't move. They can't go anywhere else and they're forced to watch this. They experience trauma. Enough that there were more than one person who sent letters to say, I have no connection, but I was forced into this connection because I was driving on E470. We heard today, and I read many letters of parents of kids, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds, freshmen, even 18-year-olds, whose kids were at school and couldn't get to them, couldn't get a hold of them, received texts. Mom, I'm scared. Mom, I think I'm gonna die. Kids who were supposed to be at school that day, but for one reason or another didn't go, an orthodontist appointment, field trip, doctor's appointment, and they weren't there. And now those kids are afraid to go back to school. They can't explain why they feel guilty that they were spared of the pain and suffering that their friends are feeling, and yet at the same time feeling relief. We heard parents talk about that even today. Kids wrote to me about that. Teachers and staff who cared about you, who wanted great things for you. We heard from a couple of those people today. I read letters from teachers who expected great things from you, would have done anything to support you and help you. And now those same teachers that would have helped you are scared to teach. The thousands of kids that would have come after you won't benefit from those great teachers because of what you did. They can't even provide for their families because they're scared of the kids that they loved so much. You did that. Kids who are at STEM school. 6-year-olds who can't enjoy 4th of July. 13-year-olds who are afraid to go to the restroom because they were hiding in a stall, afraid that they were going to be killed. 15-year-olds who are afraid to go to sleep in their own room or be away from their parents because of the nightmares from May 7th. 19-year-olds who changed their college plans because they're scared to be in a classroom with only one exit. 20-year-olds who are afraid of the dark because they were stuck in a locked down room with no windows, hearing gunshots, hearing the SWAT team break windows and doors, hearing you scream and yell, hearing their friend get killed, and they can't see anything. All they can do is hear the sounds. And their parents and families who feel helpless because they can't do anything to make it better. And then we narrow it down to the kids that were in room 107, 105, 109, and all the rooms in that hallway. Many of those letters came from kids as young as 10 and 11 who heard or saw gunfire in their classrooms. They were exposed to war zones in their own school. Someone here today, and I can't recall who, described it as a war zone. And that's what several of the letters described as well. They saw things that our soldiers overseas are trained to see. And even those folks can't comprehend some of the things that they see with their training. And you expose 10, 11, 12, 18-year-olds to that. They saw their friend get killed. 10-year-olds wrote to me describing being told not to look down so they couldn't see blood on the floor. I had another student write that their feet were cut by the glass as they were running out of the school. Mitchell Krause testified during the trial that he called his mom because moms always make things better. That was an honest, heartfelt statement. First responders who ran into the war zone didn't take the time to put on vests. They put their own lives at risk. They were saving the children that you were threatening. They weren't able to save Kendrick Castillo. And I heard from their families who were terrified that they would never come home either. I got countless letters about Kendrick Castillo, and I've heard today about Kendrick Castillo. I got letters from friends and families of Kendrick. It's been described he did the very opposite of what you did that day. But I want to talk to you about some words that people use to describe Kendrick. Not just today, not his parents, not his best friends. These were people who wrote letters that maybe you haven't read or haven't heard from. He was a mentor. He was happy. He was respectful. He was a leader. He was brave. He was kind. He was helpful. He was loving, brilliant, good, polite, amazing, selfless, a sweet soul, a difference maker, a hero. Those were words that I didn't pull out of one letter or two letters. Those were words that were consistent. Probably more than 50 letters talking about Kendrick Castillo. From what I understand, Kendrick would have done some pretty amazing things. He seemed to me, in hearing his friends and family today describe him and people who knew him and gave some anecdotes, the things that I read about him, he seemed like the kind of kid to me that Mr. Erickson, if you had confided in him that you were struggling in school, he probably would have canceled his own plans to come and help you. If you had confided in him that you were struggling at home, he would have brought you home with him. So you created a set of, these folks are victims because they will never get to have Kendrick Castillo's love and care. And in a way, the entire world is missing out on the great things that he would have done. To the 1,800 or so people, we've heard about 1,700 students in the school at STEM. But when you count the volunteers and the teachers, my understanding is that's about 1,800 people were in that school that day. And to those 1,800 people that you threatened, Kendrick saved those people without question. He and all the other heroes in that class, all of the survivors, and all of the families that have been directly impacted, those are the folks that will be remembered at the end of this, which is partially why the things that I say, and when I was considering what to say to you, and somewhat what Mr. Kaplan said about whether anything would make a difference. Mr. Brockler referred to that as well, whether this makes a difference. I hope to those people acknowledging at least this court's recognition of that makes a difference. I don't believe, Mr. Erickson, at least for now, that it makes a difference to you. The sentencing scheme has been discussed by counsel. Mr. Brockler and Mr. Kaplan, there's no disagreement. There's nothing to disagree about. The sentencing scheme is what it is. Most of these convictions are crimes of violence. They carry mandatory Department of Corrections sentences. Mr. Erickson, I'm sure you know this. When a person is convicted of crimes like the ones that you committed, they are so serious that the sentence must be at least the midpoint of the presumptive range, not more than twice the maximum sentence. Many of these must run consecutive. Many may run consecutive. There are several factors that I have to consider when imposing a sentence, and no one factor is more important than the other, and I don't have to consider these factors equally. In fact, within the factors that I have to think about, 3 of them are opposed to each other in your situation, in your case. So for example, I have to consider how to promote rehabilitation and encourage correctional programs that elicit the voluntary cooperation and participation of convicted offenders. I have to also select a sentence in length and level of supervision that addresses your individual characteristics and reduces the potential that you will engage in criminal conduct after completing your sentence. Everyone's pointed out this is a life without parole sentence on count 1. So you won't be completing this sentence. And when you do, you will not be committing criminal offenses. And yet, another factor for me to consider is to punish a convicted offender by assuring the imposition of a sentence he deserves in relation to the seriousness of his offense. That is in complete opposition to figuring out how to rehabilitate you and encourage programs so that you no longer commit criminal offenses. And I want to make something clear. I think your dad pointed out that I should consider rehabilitation, partially because Mr. McKinney received a sentence that may include some rehabilitation. You are not similarly situated to Mr. McKinney. The law says it. These facts support that. And you are convicted of different things than Mr. McKinney. So what you do with the rest of your life in prison, that's not on me, that's on you. It's not a factor that I'm considering in this sentence. The legislature has told me and defined for me the sentence is punishment. When you kill someone and you think about it before you do it, the legislature has told me I have no discretion about why you did it, how old you were other than you were over the age of 18, when you did it. If a jury convicts you of that, you're sentenced to life without parole. I need to consider how to repair the harm to victims. I must promote acceptance of responsibility by you and accountability by you in hopes that that will somehow help promote restoration for victims. Well, I've already told you what I think about that. I already have told you that whether it's because you're not capable, you're not able, or you're just not doing it, I don't believe, I haven't seen, and I haven't heard that you've accepted responsibility for this. No sentence that I will impose is going to change that. Again, that's on you. There's also nothing, no part of this sentence that I can impose that's going to repair the harm that you did that day, that's going to help these folks walk out of this courtroom and say, I feel better now. This crime is not a crime where restorative justice and your level or lack of accountability, I can't change that. Again, that's on you. You have so far yet to give anyone, and maybe even yourself, an honest explanation about why this happened. I've had to hear from everybody else, your lawyers, your parents, your grandpa, about how sorry you are, your sister, about how sorry you are. All the folks sitting in this center area, they don't want to hear from those people about how sorry you are. I also need to consider how to treat other defendants who are similarly situated to you, to assure fair and consistent treatment of all convicted offenders by eliminating unjustified disparity in sentences, providing fair warning to the nature of the sentence to be imposed, and establishing fair procedures for the imposition of sentencing. Well, in Douglas County, Mr. Brockler's right, you're the first. So to some extent, you are setting the bar here. I also pray that you're the last. Which brings me to the last factor. It is the only factor that I feel that I have a place to something, that I have a chance to offer something here. This is the only factor where I think if there is a difference to be made by the sentence that I impose today, it's with this factor. To prevent crime and promote respect for the law by providing an effective deterrent to others likely to commit similar offenses. Your dad argues that there's nothing that I can do or say that will deter these from happening again. I hope that's not true. But if it is true, I don't want to look back on this sentence and think I had a chance to do or say something to make this not happen in the future. And this is one of the factors that legislature has told me that I have to consider. So if there's any message that I want to clearly convey today, is that the violence that you planned and executed on May 7th, it should never have happened. It should never be repeated. It should never happen again. So the two factors that apply to you, in my opinion, from the factors defined by the legislature are punishment and deterrence. Punishment's defined already, with the exception of some crimes. So count one alone is life without parole. My goal with the remaining charges is to create a sentence that will prevent this from happening in the future. I consider the things that you did on the months, days, and weeks, and hours, and minutes leading up to the events that happened at 1:53 on May 7th to be so heinous, so violent, and so far-reaching that warrants the following sentence. Counts 1 and 2, which are murder in the first degree. 1 is with deliberation, 2 is extreme indifference. Life without parole, those will run concurrent to each other. That's for the death of Kendrick Castillo. Conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree after deliberation. Count 3 is 24 years, Department of Corrections. Count 4, attempted first degree murder after deliberation for Lucas Albertoni. It's 48 years in the Department of Corrections to run consecutive to counts 1, 2, and 3. Count 5, attempted first degree murder after deliberation, attempting the murder of Joshua Jones, 48 years in the Department of Corrections to run consecutive to counts 1 through 4. Count 6, attempted murder of Mitchell Krause after deliberation, 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 1 through 5. Count 7, attempted murder after deliberation of Alex Watford, 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 1 through 6. Count 8, attempted murder, Jackson Gregory after deliberation, 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to 1 through 7. Count 9, attempted murder of Gerardo Montoya Ojeda after deliberation, 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 1 through 8. Count 10, attempted murder of Lucas Albertoni, extreme indifference. 48 years, Department of Corrections, concurrent to count 4, but consecutive to all others. Count 11, attempted first degree murder, extreme indifference of Brandon Biley, 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 12, attempted murder of Christian Dean, extreme indifference, 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 13, attempted murder of Barbara Elenis, extreme indifference, 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 14, attempted murder, extreme indifference of Christopher Engel, 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 15, attempted first degree murder, extreme indifference, Truman Geeson, 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 16, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Jackson Gregory, 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others, concurrent to count 8. Count 17, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Aaron Paget. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 18, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Chloe Ha. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 19, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Grace Holland. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 20, attempted first-degree murder, extreme indifference, Josh Jones. 48 years, Department of Corrections, concurrent to count 5, consecutive to all others. Count 21, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Mitchell Krause. 48 years, Department of Corrections, concurrent to count 6, consecutive to all others. Count 21, attempted murder, extreme indifference of Ethan Catulas. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 23, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Khalil McRoy. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 24, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Logan Griffith. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 25, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Gerardo Montoya Ojeda. 48 years, Department of Corrections, concurrent to count 9, consecutive to all others. Count 26, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Isabella Pericini. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 27, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Tyler Pham. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 28, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Toscani Nui Silberstein. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 29, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Kyle Sperber. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 30, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Tyler Strimbu. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 31, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Riley Wharton. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 32, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Nathan Wojcik. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 33, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Lauren Harper. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. Count 34, attempted murder, extreme indifference, Raquel Segru. 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all others. My reasoning for reading those charges and each individual survivor and the individual sentence for each one of those charges is because I could not think of a reason to group these people into a 1, 2 through 7, 6 through 5, 6 through 10. Each one of these people suffered and survived what you did on May 7th. Each one of those people deserves an acknowledgement, and you must serve, whether it's academic or not, a sentence for what you did to each one of those people. Count 35, second-degree arson. I listened to your parents, and I could tell what they were saying was hard for some people to hear. And frankly, it was a little hard for me to hear as well. But I want, Mr. Erickson, you to know that your family, they were victims too. and the hurt that they express, the guilt that they feel, the blame that they put on themselves. They didn't do that. You did that. Count 35, 4 years, Department of Corrections. It'll run concurrent. To count 3. Count 36, providing a handgun to a juvenile. The folks who spoke on your behalf, Mr. Erickson, even over your objection, probably for them to be able to cope, want to blame what you did on Mr. McKinney. And I can't agree or disagree. I don't know whether you met Mr. McKinney or not, if you would have done what you did. It doesn't matter, because you did do what you did. What I can say for certain is, but for you giving a gun to Alec McKinney, he wouldn't have had one. So I do know that. And you are guilty of providing a handgun to a juvenile. And for that, although it is discretionary, whether the sentence that I impose in this charge and whether it runs consecutive or concurrent, because of that, but for you providing a handgun to Mr. McKinney, this does not happen. 6 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to all other charges. Third-degree burglary. This is with your parents again as a victim. This is count 37, 3 years, Department of Corrections, concurrent with count 35. Count 38, conspiracy to commit second-degree arson, 3 years, Department of Corrections, concurrent to count 35 and 37. Count 39, theft, 18 months, Department of Corrections. This is another charge that, but for the theft, this does not happen. And for that reason, count 39 runs consecutive to all other charges. Count 40, possession of a weapon on school grounds. Same line of thinking, but for you possessing a weapon, and to the extent that I can tell every other kid who goes to school, don't bring a weapon to school. To the extent that I can deter even one person from doing that, I am imposing 18 months, which is the maximum sentence, consecutive. Criminal mischief, count 41, your parents as the victim, 1 year, Department of Corrections, concurrent. 42, conspiracy to commit criminal mischief, 1 year, Department of Corrections, to run concurrent with count 41. Count 43, conspiracy to commit theft, 1 year, consecutive. Count 44, conspiracy to commit burglary, 1 year, concurrent. Count 45, interference with school staff, 6 months in the county jail. Credit for time served. Count 46, reckless endangerment, 6 months county jail. Credit for time served. I obviously disagree with the idea that imposing a sentence that may seem academic is a waste of time. There's reasons. I hope that I have given those reasons. And by giving those reasons, I hope that it accomplishes the goal set out by the legislature and my intentions today, which is to make sure that this never happens again. Mr. Brockler, anything you think I missed or anything you'd like to change or add?
No, Your Honor. I know there's one more matter regarding restitution. If I could have just 1 second.
I see that was filed. Is there an objection to restitution? Thank you.
Your Honor, I cannot stipulate to it at this point
Okay.
without taking a closer look.
That's fine. It was filed, I think, last night or this morning.
Yeah, I have seen it, but I don't.
That's okay. That's all right. Can you respond within 30 days?
Certainly. Yes.
If a hearing's necessary, then we'll set a hearing. If it's not, then I'll grant the restitution. Anything else, Mr. Brockler?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Kaplan?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, everyone who was here today. Thank you for everyone who submitted letters. We're in recess.